Hello everyone, and welcome to this series of videos about understanding your own blood tests. We're doing this because increasingly blood tests are not just for sickness, blood tests can be for health as well, and it's really important for people to understand what's going on inside your own body and empower you to take control of your own health. So in this series of videos we're going to chunk down what a full profile looks like into different videos, and you can find a full playlist up there or up there so you can choose which particular organ system you want to look at. We're going to start with the full blood count today, but first of all, a caveat. We're not going to talk about anything very serious in these tests. Needless to say, if you've had a blood result and the results are all over the place, go and see your doctor. Often as well, bloods can be a little bit up or a little bit down, just slightly out of range. That often isn't a problem. The moral here is don't freak out unless your doctor freaks out. Now, let's get on with it. To start with, full blood count, FBC or CBC if you're American. Let's go. Okay, so let's start with red cells. Red cells carry oxygen around your body, and when you slice your hand open and you see red, you're seeing red cells. So when we look at it, we're breaking it down into the red cells themselves. How many do you have? That's your red cell count. We're looking at the protein inside the red cells, which carry oxygen everywhere. That's your hemoglobin. And we're looking at how thick your blood is. That's the hematocrit. We put them all together to work out if you have the right amount of red blood cells doing the right thing in your body. Sometimes they can be a bit too high. They can be high in sporty people because you need more oxygen, so you produce more red blood cells. They're high in smokers because they need more oxygen as well. Sometimes they go a little bit high because you're dehydrated, so that's a very common cause for things to be just a little bit on the high side. They can also drop quite low, and when your red cells are low, that's called anemia. Then we start looking at the measurements, so your MCH, MCHC, RDW and MCV. What does that all mean? Well, it just means we're looking at the different sizes of your cells. We're measuring them under the microscope, and we can see how big your red cells are and what the difference between the smallest and the largest cell is. That lets us figure out what might be causing certain blood conditions. So for example, if you have iron deficiency anemia, your red cells tend to be quite small, so your MCV, your MCH, they might be quite low. If you have B12 deficiency or you drink a lot of alcohol, your cells might be quite big. So you can kind of see over time that we can put it all together and figure out what's going on inside your body based on your red cells, about how they're functioning and what their sizes are. Obviously, looking at your red cells only is a little bit of a snapshot. That's why we do the other blood tests that look at your other organ systems to help put that constellation together to figure out what's causing the whole picture. So we'll come on to that in other videos. Now, let's move on to the white cell count. White cells are the cells that you produce when you have an infection. So we look at the total white cell count, which lets us know if you have a lot of white cells or not that many. It's not that useful in itself. It becomes useful when we start breaking it down, and we can see the cells which are forcing the white cell count up or down. Let's start with the neutrophils. So neutrophils go up with bacterial infections. Bacterial infections are fairly common. Often you're fighting off a lot of these every now and then, but when they get really serious, that's when you need antibiotics, and that's when you can see your doctor. So that's what your doctor's looking at with neutrophils. Then we have lymphocytes. Lymphocytes tend to respond to viral infections like the common cold or more recently COVID. Sometimes lymphocytes go up with an infection, sometimes they go down. Viral infections tend not to respond to antibiotics. Eosinophils. These are cells which tend to respond to allergy, things like hay fever, dust mites, also things like asthma. They go really high when you have a parasite. So if you've got that worm inside you, making you lose loads of great weight, eosinophils are probably going to be really high too. Basophils, similar. They also respond to viral infections, they respond to allergy, and they can make you very itchy if you have an allergy as well. And finally, we've got monocytes. Monocytes tend to go up or down in chronic infections or things that happen over a long period of time. So that's your white cells, and you can see how we're breaking them down piece by piece to work out what bug might be infecting you and making you sick. Finally, we've got your clotting status. Clotting is what happens when you slice yourself open and you form a scab. We're looking at platelets here. Platelets are tiny little things which are going around inside your blood vessels, and when your vessels get damaged, platelets start a whole cascade of events which causes them to repair. So platelets should normally be around the normal range. They can drop in certain chronic conditions and they can go up quite commonly with infection or inflammation and things like that, if they go really high, that should probably be investigated a bit further as well, especially if you haven't been sick. The MPV is the measure of the size of those platelets, a bit like what we did in the red cell count. Basically, if your platelets are a bit high or a bit low, we can look at the MPV to figure out why that might be the case, but ultimately you probably don't need to worry about that one. And ladies and gents, that is your full blood count, FBC, CBC. We'll see you next time for kidney function tests. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps. If you want to go into a bit more depth, just go to my website here, and you can also follow me on Instagram and ask any questions you like there. Thank you.